Thank you. Call to order the Village of Hinsdale Board of Trustees meeting for Tuesday, June 13th, 2023. Please stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the first item up is the approval of the minutes of the May 16, 2023 meeting. Can I have a motion?
Move to approve the minutes of the Village Board of Trustees regular meeting of May 16, 2023.
Second.
Any changes? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Trustee Pashima?
Aye.
Trustee Braden?
Aye.
Trustee Siffler?
Aye.
Trustee Fisher? Aye. Trustee Burns?
Aye.
Trustee Baker?
Aye.
Takes us to President's comments. Uniquely, Thursday's summer concert series in Burlington Park starts this Thursday from 6 to 9 p.m. DuPage County has started putting asphalt on the pavement, first removing the asphalt and then putting on new asphalt on 55th Street. That work is anticipated to be completed by mid-July. As you know, the village starts its standpipe project, which I call the water tower, in May, and we're hoping to complete the water tower painting and renovation project by early July. The 4th of July parade this year will be on the 4th of July, and it will begin at 10 a.m. on 6th and Garfield. There will be a family festival in Burlington Park from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. with arts and craft fairs, food vendors, free kids activities, and live music. There will be a blood drive Monday, July 20th from 7 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. in the Hinsdale Fire Department parking lot at 121 Simons Drive. Walk-ins are welcome, or visit www.versiti.org/Illinois for an appointment. I'd also like to thank some of our legislators for getting funding for the village for certain of our project. In particular, I'd like to thank the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Chris Welsh, and State Senator Susie Glowiak-Hilton, and Representative Jennifer Gladish Douglas for their work on behalf of Hinsdale to secure Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity Grant funding as part of the 2024 State of Illinois budget. First, I'd like to thank State Senator Susie Glowiak-Hilton for work on behalf of the village to secure $950,000 to replace our fire engine. As residents may recall, at a recent board meeting, the board discussed how expensive fire engines have become, and we'd budgeted much less for a fire engine that needs to be replaced. And so I'm very thankful that the state of Illinois is giving us a grant. That said, as I've talked to about the trustees, we still think it's important, even though we have this grant to buy a fire engine, that we make efforts to share fire department equipment with other villages. It makes little sense in my mind. I think the trustees agree. For every village that has 15,000 or more people, to have 2 or 3 fire trucks and fire equipment to sustain that village, when we can certainly share equipment, we can share backup equipment, and so that's an initiative I'd still like to see followed through on, but we very much appreciate the grant of $850,000. I'd also like to congratulate or thank State Senator Glowiak-Hilton. She also received from us, in connection with that, Representative Gladish Douglas also was helpful in securing a $250,000 grant for future construction renovations to the Hinsdale Community Pool. And that the Hinsdale Pool is a very expensive to maintain, and we really appreciate state money to help us with that. State Senator Glowiak-Hilton also further was successful in securing a $50,000 grant for us for an ADA accessibility improvements to Catherine Legge Memorial Lodge. In addition, State Representative Jennifer Gladish Douglas was able to secure $250,000 for unrestricted infrastructure improvements. So again, I'd like to thank our state representatives, and they've done a wonderful job for helping to get grants for the Village of Hinsdale. Next up on the agenda is citizens petition. Anybody here want to talk on anything on or off the agenda?
Off the agenda.
Okay, you can, it's
Yes, sir.
whatever.
Joe Craig, 602 South Garfield, Hinsdale. Well, first, before I talk about what I came here to talk about, put on my American Legion hat, because we had a meeting last week and they couldn't be more pleased with the village and how they supported us on Memorial Day. What a great job they did.
Excellent.
And beyond that, I don't want to leave out the police and fire department too, because I've had interactions with them. And I think you really have a first-class operation here. And that comes from 31 years in law enforcement, including some community scientists. So, anyway, so I'll segue into why I'm here. And I've also been urged by at least 6 or 7 other people that I've talked to about this. And I'm gonna just give you maybe 5 observations out of maybe 100. Sitting at Fuller's, having some dinner on the patio, 2 girls on electric bikes going the wrong way down First Street, going really fast. Thank God, after they were gone, a couple cars had backup lights come on. No one's expecting a vehicle to be doing 20-some miles an hour the wrong way in the blind spot where they're parked. Monday, I was parked right out here, and I had my passenger door open in my car by the rail on the stairs. Maybe about this much space left. Kid on a gas mini bike came up the sidewalk really fast. There were kids just beyond my car on the sidewalk. Last year, kid on an electric bike going down Garfield, extremely fast. He had a rope pulling a kid on a conventional bike. That kid had a 20-foot rope pulling another kid on a conventional bike. So all around the village here, you talk to people, everybody's seeing these incidents happen. The last one I'll bring up is, I was in front of Starbucks on Poppy Day, and a kid going to the middle school on a very powerful fat tire bike up the sidewalk, extremely fast, past Tony's Bakery, right by the doorway. About half an hour later, a man I know that's about 65 years old came down the street, and I said to him, you know, what had happened? And he said, gee, those couple days ago, that kid almost ran me over. So, wrong way, going stop signs, up on curbs, down curbs. These things are everywhere. Tuesday, yesterday, going down Garfield at Route 25, so I was speeding. 2 kids on gas-powered bikes were pulling away from me down Garfield. And by the time I got down to the stop sign at 8, they were already down at 55th Street already. So, in my 31 years with law enforcement, I've seen a lot of tragedy, hundreds if not thousands of them. So what can the village board do before we have kids going to the hospital, senior citizen going to the hospital, family staying at a funeral? State law, as far as I know, is 16 years old, I believe, Illinois Ohio statutes. Bikes over a certain.
Yeah, the gas-powered bikes are regulated, the electric bikes are not.
I think it's 16 and over for a certain amount of wattage.
There's a loophole in the electric bikes. We could, this is not the first time I've heard this comment. They're, like you say, they're ubiquitous in the village. They're just all over the place right now. I mean, we could take a look and see what some of the options are.
Okay,
Yeah.
because the state statute also says that beyond what the state requires, it's up to local municipalities to pass and enforce their own ordinances. And really, I don't want us going after kids. If we have parents that don't care that their kids are in danger, that their kids are gonna be hurt, we have to hold the parents accountable, not the kids. You can impound the bike and you have the parent come down and find the parent. That's what needs to be done,
Okay, thank you.
from my perspective.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, Chief King, tell me again what the regulations are. You said gas are different than electric?
Correct. There's a loophole for the electric bikes. I could look and bring back to the board a report on what our options are for regulation, but off the top of my head, I wouldn't
What
even
is the state
speculate.
law on gas powered?
As Joe had indicated, there's a regulation on where they can be driven, like your example in front of the village hall, that would clearly be illegal and open to a citation. And then there's regulations due to the age of who's driving it.
Okay.
Chief King, For the electric bikes, so it's not regulated, so there's no age?
Correct.
Because I saw incoming second grader riding one yesterday, flying up park with no helmet. And we were, as parents, all at a gathering and upset that was obviously
Are
an
most of
older
them-
sibling's
are
bike
mo-
that he got a hold of.
Are most of these gas or electric?
Electric.
Electric.
They're all
So-
over my neighborhood.
So, I mean, I've heard this before from people, more, just like in the last 2 weeks. But maybe we can propose a regulation for the village. I mean, I know we're non-home rule, I know there's limits on what we can do, but I assume we can do that.
Well, give us a little time to research
Yeah,
what's
sure.
available, and then
Yeah.
we'll bring something back to the board.
Sure.
And they have no regard for stop signs, yield signs.
Right,
You know, don't even know what those are.
right,
And I believe someone's already been hit by Fuller's.
yeah.
Yeah, could I just point out, go on the internet and look at emergency room visits over the last 4 or
No,
5 years?
I get it,
You know,
I get it, I get it. Okay, any other? Yeah.
Hello, my name is Max Moran. I live in Hinsdale on Walnut Street. So I wanted to talk to you today about models, different ways in which food can be delivered to poor people. For example, our family has dealt with situation like Meals on Wheels, where it's actually delivered to the people who are hungry. From what I understand here, in our situation though, we're talking about a situation where HCA has been having a lot of cars pull up to this village hall. Now they're talking about moving it to another area. And I certainly would hope that the village thinks this model through. We did ask the question, so far we've not ascertained any other area in Chicagoland even that does have lines of cars lined up for food pantries or whatever in residential areas. You know, in residential areas. In commercial areas, yes, for gigantic parking lots. But in residential areas, no. Sorry, sure.
In residential areas, no. At least we have not, I'm not an expert on this, but that's what we found out so far or whatever. And should that be really happening? And should we have a situation where lots of cars are lined up, like, for example, right across from the ER of the hospital? So I would like to say that, you know, as this project goes on here, I would like to urge that there be a public hearing where concerned citizens can talk about this and express their concerns, and also think through as far as all the pros and cons. I know everyone wants to, who can be against feeding the hungry, but I want to make sure that, you know, things like traffic and safety are properly thought of too. Thank you very much.
So, yeah, thank you. So this is, at this point, you know, we have an agreement that we've tentatively reached with the food pantry to relocate from this building to the, what was formerly the Humane Society building. And one of the things we asked the food pantry to do is to reach out to the community with people surrounding that to figure out whether there's any opposition and how they can work with the residents to make that location work. And I know that that's ongoing, and I know that they are considering what hours they're open. They're only open, like, I think 2 days a week for like 3 hours in those 2-day periods or something like that. It's a fairly abbreviated time period in which they're open. It's not going to be open, you know, for lengthy periods of time. And we've devised a plan as to queue cars. We've also devised a plan that if cars can't be queued, a place that they would stay so they're not in the neighborhood. So the first step on this is obviously to have the food pantry meet with the residents, which I understand is going on, try to address those concerns. And then, you know, hopefully when it comes to the board, there's at least, you know, close to being a resolution of all these issues. If not, we're certainly going to have a public hearing on it. You know, we're not going to vote on it in private or anything, so we'll certainly bring it to the board. But right now, we thought it would be best for the food pantry to handle that, since they control their own hours and they control the operation, for them to meet with the residents and try to work through these issues, which I understand that they're doing right now. So hopefully that's, and as to the issue of whether there's other food pantries in other areas that are adjacent to residential homes, I frankly don't know that. I haven't done a study on that. Yeah. So, I mean, it's not, where we're putting the parking would actually be across from the hospital, which has a fair amount of parking already. It's parking spaces that were formerly for the hospital that now we've given to the food pantry, and we've also going to put in a sidewalk there for people to walk down when they park. But I do think we have, we've done a fair amount of work queuing where the cars would go, so that they're not parked in front of people's homes, that it doesn't extend beyond, directly in front of the Humane Society. So we're very sensitive to the fact that this is an imposition on residential areas, but hopefully we can minimize and mitigate those. But we'll certainly have a formal hearing on that.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Anything on or off the agenda? Okay, that takes us to appointments. I'd like to recommend to the Board of Trustees that we appoint Chris Elder to the Historic Preservation Commission, who would fill Alexis's unexpired term through the end of April 30th, 2024. Do you have a motion?
Move to approve the appointment of Chris Elder to the Historic Preservation Commission as recommended by the village president.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Trustee Pashima?
Aye.
Trustee Braden?
Aye.
Trustee Stifler?
Aye.
Trustee Fisher?
Aye.
Trustee Burns?
Aye.
Trustee Banky?
Aye.
Okay, first read.
Yes, yep. So item 6A is the first read. This is to award a cleaning contract for the remainder of 2023 to CertaClean for cleaning services at the KLM Lodge. As you may know, KLM hosts over 100 events every year. The existing provider of cleaning services is no longer able to do so, so they terminated their agreement with the village in January. Village requested bids in March. They received 4 bids, and CertaClean was the lowest of those 4 bids. They've also been the provider that's been providing those services on a temporary basis since the previous cleaning providers had to terminate their agreement. As I understand, they've been doing a good job, and they also have received positive references from other referrals. The winning bid is $24,750. The prorated version of that is $12,375. And as I understand it, Mike, is it a little over 10,000 that's been spent so far?
Correct, just slightly over 10,000.
Yeah. So total amount expended is expected to be in the neighborhood of $24,000, which would exceed the 2023 budget by about $5,000. As you may know, obviously we charge for the various events that are hosted at the lodge on a per event basis. So as the events go up and the fees that we get from the rentals go up, the costs of cleaning will also go up as well. But the bids for the services came in a little bit higher, as you know, in this inflationary cycle. Really, the cost of any labor-intensive service has increased, during the last year or so. Mike, do you have anything further you want to add, or?
No, that was perfect. I have nothing to add. I'll entertain any questions, though.
How's the rentals going there?
We're on par from same as last year. It slows down in the beginning of the summer and slows down at the end of fall and winter, but we're approaching our busy season right now.
Okay.
Joe?
Can I ask a silly question? Maybe this is dependent on size of the event, but could those costs be absorbed or brought over to, if I've had a wedding there, I would probably expect to be paying a cleaning fee.
Well, maybe it's built into the
I think it's built into the fee, right, Mike?
It is built into the fee, and that is something as a village that we're looking at all of our fees going into the future, but it is built into the fee currently.
And you set those fees on an annual basis?
I don't honestly know the last time that they've been reviewed since I've been here, but it is something that I'm starting to look into and comparing to what other venues near us are charging. We don't want to outcharge ourselves at the same time, but we want to be very comparable with similar venues in our surrounding area.
Yep, yep, okay. Okay,
Any other questions? Consent agenda?
yep. Luke?
Yep. Which moves us to agenda item 6B. This is a first read and is a recommendation from the police department to change a two-way stop sign at the corner of Monroe and Chestnut to a four-way stop sign. Unlike a number of recommendations that we've had for installing four-way stop signs in the past, which have been primarily begun by residents asking for this. This is simply a request out of crash data. Specifically, over the past 14 months, there have been 7 crashes that have occurred, and 5 of those crashes have occurred within the past 12 months. As I've discussed before, the U.S. Department of Transportation publishes standards for stop and yield signs in its Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, and according to these standards, the increase in collisions to 5 within a 12-month period now warrants a 4-way stop sign. So just to give trustees a little bit more detail as far as where this is, if you're driving west by the pool and you make a right-hand turn to go over the railroad tracks, that's on Monroe Street, and the first intersection that you come to is Chestnut. Right now, it's a two-way stop sign going east-west, and the cars going north-south have the right-of-way to go by there, just if you've noticed in the past. In addition to the request to put a 4-way stop sign in, this intersection is approximately 300 feet from the railroad crossing at Monroe. And in order to provide the safest environment free from obstruction, which may cause vehicles to stop on the railroad crossing, which is what we don't want, the police department is also recommending a prohibition of parking on both sides of the street on Monroe, between the railroad tracks and Chestnut. This would make it so that, you know, any cars that are going, you don't have 2 cars plus cars on both sides of the street slowing down and then potentially someone backing up or queuing up onto the railroad tracks. The police department has discussed all of these changes with the residents on Monroe Street between the railroad and Chestnut by knocking on doors and having conversations with them. There have been nobody that's against this. So that's it. Anything else to add to that, Chief?
No, we have had requests, but not recently, to make that a 4-way stop that came from residents.
Yep.
But up until now, it hasn't met the warrants.
Yeah, and we've had this discussion before at this board. Rather than just simply putting stop signs up whenever residents request it, if we did that, we'd have stop signs at every single intersection, and then nobody would follow the stop signs. Really try to stick to what is published by the Department of Transportation and those recommendations, and this just simply falls into it. Chief, do you know why there may be an increase within the past 12 months that puts it over this benchmark?
I don't know, the only, when we looked at this issue before a couple years ago, you know, the people that were coming to us were elderly drivers that said they were having difficult times, like timing the gap on Monroe. But again, those accident numbers were relatively small in comparison, and they weren't anywhere near the benchmark. But they're all right-angle crashes, and my assumption is, I haven't looked at, the one Tom points to in his memo, I haven't looked at those. I know they're right-angle crashes, but my guess is it's the same dynamic, just trying to time the gap with traffic on Monroe.
I go through that intersection 3 or 4 times a week, and over the years, I've seen countless cars just, it's not timing, they just blow through the, you know.
Going east
Chestnut.
to west.
Yeah, going east or west, they just
Right,
blow
right.
through the intersection.
Right.
I don't know why, but I honk at them, and sometimes I bless them.
Right. Yeah, no, it makes sense.
All right. Here, consent agenda?
Yeah, we good?
Okay, good. Which moves us on to the next item, which is agenda item 6C, and this is a first read, and it's an exterior appearance and site plan to allow for the installation of an entrance gate across from Foxgate Lane. Foxgate Lane is the entrance to the Foxgate subdivision, which is directly across from the entrance to the high school athletic fields on 57th Street, which is very close to the village standpipe, or as President Colley calls it, the water tower.
Am I the only one that calls it that?
No, I call it the water tower too, but I had to look up what standpipe
Yeah,
was
me,
when
yeah,
the first
okay.
time I came here. So, This is, within the past year, this will be the second request that we've seen for a private gate entrance. The trustees should know that the neighbors of this HOA, which makes up about 16 townhomes within this cul-de-sac, they've been talking to staff about this for years. So I do not believe that this is the beginning of a number of neighborhood organizations coming and wanting to put gates up in front of their neighborhoods. I truly believe what we had down at Monroe and Ogden area, and then this are truly unique situations. And at least I want to make sure that from my comments tonight, that I think, at least from my opinion, if we're granting the right for people to put up private gates, that it has to be an unusual circumstance. From my opinion, it's not just simply a right, or else we're going to turn into a bunch of gated communities within the
Right.
village.
I think it's more than that the resident, unless I've got this wrong, but I think they had already had approval for this to be gated, and they just didn't have the money to do it many years ago. Did I get that right?
Interesting.
I'm not aware of that. No.
There's a handheld mic too.
Jack Sartor, 5716 Foxgate Lane. We were here, my wife spoke before you, we were the last meeting before the pandemic that we came to you.
To this meet, to us?
Yeah.
I don't recall that, but, okay.
Well, that was the last meeting before you shut down
Okay.
all meetings.
I think it was just simply
because of
public
the
comment.
pandemic.
Oh, public comment.
Just
Okay,
public comments,
okay.
yeah.
Basically, it's a safety issue. We have the morning traffic and the dismissal traffic for the high school. Because of the backup going westbound
Right.
at Madison, they don't want to wait any longer, so they decide to turn around in their cul-de-sac.
But I had thought that years ago, that there was, it came before a different board, and the proposal was made,
Yes.
and there was not enough money to finance it.
And that was me. I did come before you then, and we didn't have the money, and the people at the time didn't think there was a need. At the time, the high school has gotten much larger, so the situation got a lot worse.
Okay.
Any
Okay.
questions?
You know, one thing I would emphasize is that this is exactly as the resident said, is it's being driven by the turnarounds from all the high school traffic. I'll admit, I've done it before, you know, especially with athletic events, when you go to park by the athletic fields, it's got a turnaround. If there's no spot, you come in and people.
Well,
make
they've
a
had parking
turnaround.
issues too, haven't they, that during athletic things?
People parking on your street.
Well, they don't allow any more parking on 57th Street. So that's helped, except for when they have an event, they're allowed to.
Right.
The school does not park during school hours on 57.
Right, yeah, no, my concern, I have good friends you're there, Ann and Eric, and, you know, they say that, you know, during events, and I go down 57th Street, this is very much needed.
I think so too.
And isn't it a private road?
It is. It's
Yeah.
a private cul-de-sac. It's a private road. It's a 4-foot high, black wrought iron gate.
Match the existing fence.
Exactly. It would be 28 feet. You know, each leg would be 14 feet. It would swing inward so as to not move out into the public right-of-way onto 47th Street. You know, this did go in front of the plan. It was, at least in the application for the RBA, it was the intent that this would only be used during the busy times, is what the applicant said, which is basically school letting in and starting, and then also the athletic events. So at the Plan Commission, there was discussion about, you know, potentially having it be on a timer so that it would be open at other points of the time. And one of the big concerns was, you know, 16 townhomes, how many Amazon and UPS packages are delivered there per day? And what happens to those? The boxes start piling up outside, or the trucks stopping on 57th Street. So I don't believe there's been any reconciliation to that. Do you guys plan on putting it on a timer?
We need to, those things we still need to work out with the gate people as far as a timer, or how to have the Amazon and those delivery people come in or whatever.
And so would the residents have a transponder to open the
Yes.
gate? Okay.
Yes.
And right now, Amazon and UPS, they drive right up through the cul-de-sac and drop the things off there, okay? Is that the desire, to have those trucks still go up and go through that?
Yeah, they come at a time that's, you know, not inconvenient as far as either late morning or early evening or whatever. They're not coming at a real very busy time. So it's just usually one truck at a time, so.
Or couldn't you simply put the gate code in the notes of your Amazon purchase or
Yeah,
online?
yeah.
I know other similar communities do that as well.
Right, because there's a lot of gated communities, right? I mean, so, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, there has to be some way to deal with that.
right.
Right.
So,
Yeah,
we'll-
that was my only concern. I
Yeah.
hadn't heard of that being done
Yeah.
before.
I mean, otherwise, in front of every gay community, you have thousands of boxes.
Boxes,
but
right.
Yeah,
Code it is.
yeah.
Okay.
Does it make sense? I know, Scott, you're the one, that, you know, you talked about, I frankly don't worry as much about precedent because we always have the ability to say no. You know, you take everything up on its own merits, but, I mean, you're the one that said what we were doing on Monroe could, you know, be a watershed event and lead to others. I view that, first of all, I think this was in the works before the Monroe thing, but in any event, I'd be interested in your thoughts.
No, I actually have no issue with this in contrast to my, my earlier comments on the other location. My son played baseball at Hinsdale Central, so I am fully aware of the situation. Yeah, very much so. And I know that, for instance, when you have visiting teams, it's because of where the proximity of the baseball field, it's not uncommon for individuals to try to park in that particular, in your development. So, no, I think this is more of a safety to the residents, and something really, it's more of a public courtesy and something that's needed. So I'm in full support of this, frankly.
Okay,
Thank you.
great.
So we will not vote on this evening. We'll vote on it in 2 weeks, or next month in July, but there's no need for you
You
to
don't
come
have to
back.
come.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that takes us to consent agenda. Who had the accounts payable?
I had accounts payable. I found everything to be in order. And as such, I'll make a motion to approve payment to the accounts payable for the period of May 11th, 2023 through June 7th, 2023, in the aggregate amount of $1,643,689.08 as set forth on the list provided by the village treasurer, which permanent copy is on file with the clerk.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Trustee Postma?
Aye.
Trustee Braden?
Aye.
Trustee Stifler?
Aye.
Trustee Fisher?
Aye.
Trustee Burns?
Aye.
Trustee Bain?
Aye.
Can I have a motion with respect to consent agenda items 7B through 7D?
Move to approve consent agenda items 7B through 7D.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Trustee Postma?
Aye.
Trustee Braden?
Aye.
Trustee Stifler?
Aye.
Trustee Fisher?
Aye.
Trustee Burns?
Aye.
Trustee Bain?
Aye.
To you, Luke.
Yep, which moves us to agenda item 8A. And this is a second read. We discussed this at the last meeting. It's an intergovernmental agreement between Clarendon Hills and Hinsdale relating to the billing of ambulance calls. On the fall of '22, we adopted an ambulance billing rate to ensure that residents are not billed for more than what their respective insurance covers. For operational purposes, we have circumstances where Hinsdale may respond to Clarendon Hills and then also vice versa. This agreement simply recognizes residents in both communities for purposes of billing, and this agreement ensures that both Hinsdale and Clarendon Hill residents are not billed more than their insurance coverage regardless of the community in which they live. Questions, comments from trustees? Hearing none, I will make a motion to approve an intergovernmental agreement between the Village of Hinsdale and the Village of Clarendon Hills in relation to the billing of ambulance calls.
Roll call vote.
Do we need a second?
Second.
Oh, second. Roll call vote.
Trustee Postma?
Aye.
Trustee Braden?
Aye.
Trustee Stifler?
Aye.
Trustee Fisher?
Aye.
Trustee Burns?
Aye.
Trustee Bain?
Moves us to agenda item 8B, and this is an exterior appearance and site plan review for improvements to the existing building at 36 East Hinsdale Avenue, which houses Salon Lofts on the first floor and Performance Wealth Management on the second floor. In 2018, this board approved exterior appearance to modify the front and rear facade of the building. The applicant is now requesting the changes to the entryway at the rear of the building on the north side adjacent to the village-owned parking lot. You know, as we discussed last month, both the Plan Commission and the Historic Preservation Commission had 3 primary changes that they wanted to be made to this. The applicant accepted all of the changes, including changes to the sign, lighting, and the pillars on the building. We reviewed the photographs or illustrations that were in, and all trustees were fairly satisfied with it. So I'd open it up to any questions or comments at this second read. No? Hearing none, I'll make a motion to approve an ordinance approving exterior appearance and site plan for improvements to an existing building at 36 East Hinsdale Avenue, Performance Wealth Management.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Trustee Pashma?
Aye.
Trustee Braden?
Aye.
Trustee Stifler?
Aye.
Trustee Fisher?
Aye.
Trustee Burns?
Aye.
Trustee Banky?
Aye.
Moving to agenda item 8C, this is an application for a temporary use permit for outdoor dining through November 1st at 50 South Garfield Street, commonly known as Fuller House, and also to permit live outdoor music on Wednesday evenings from 6 to 9 p.m. from June 14th through September 28th. Fuller House is utilizing the entire private outdoor patio east of their building, including the space which was previously used for dips and dogs. This temporary use permit will bring the applicant into compliance with the current use of the entire 2,600 square feet. And then, as we discussed at the last meeting, they're simply going to have outdoor music on Wednesday nights, acoustic music. There were no comments no material comments from trustees or input from residents, and we told the applicant not to come back this evening. So, questions or concerns? Hearing none, I will make a motion to approve a temporary use permit to allow for outdoor dining on private property until November 1st of 2023, and allow for outdoor live music every Wednesday from June 14th of 23 to September 28th of 23 for Fuller House located at 50 South Garfield Avenue, subject to the conditions set forth by the building commissioner.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Trustee Pashma?
Aye.
Trustee Braden?
Aye.
Trustee Stifler?
Aye.
Trustee Fisher?
Aye.
Trustee Burns?
Aye.
Trustee Banky?
Aye.
Moving to agenda item 8D. This is an ordinance to approve for 13 additional properties within the historic overlay district for inclusion onto the historic significant structures property list pertaining to Title 14. As this board is aware, last year we created the historic overlay district to provide economic and zoning incentives to property owners to rehab and preserve historically significant homes. Earlier this year, we reviewed the first round of 46 properties, which were added to the list, and this is simply the second round of properties. I'm not going to run through all of the property addresses, but I would note, as I did last time, that the staff did a very good job of detailing each of the properties and the history of those properties. And with that, I'd open it up to questions. Hearing none, I'll make a motion to approve an ordinance approving various additional properties within the historic overlay zoning district for inclusion on the historically significant structures property list.
I'll second.
Roll call vote?
Trustee Pashma?
Aye.
Trustee Braden?
Aye.
Trustee Stifler?
Aye.
Trustee Fisher?
Aye.
Trustee Burns?
Aye.
Trustee Banky?
Aye.
And then moving to agenda item 8E is the same, except we're only including one property, which is at 309 East Chicago Avenue. We are doing this under a separate vote simply because there were two public hearings on the matter, and we want to make sure procedurally that we're doing this correctly. But at the very first round of Historic Preservation Commission reviews, they pulled this property off because of the amount of improvements and changes that were being made to this, and they wanted to look at it more closely as it was completed. It's been completed, they reviewed it, they believe it should go on. And as such, we talked about it last time, and it was general concurrence from the trustees that it should also go on. Okay. With that, I'll make a motion to approve an ordinance approving a property within the historic overlay zoning district for inclusion on the historically significant structures property list, specifically 309 East Chicago Avenue.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Trustee Pashma?
Aye.
Trustee Braden?
Aye.
Trustee Stifler?
Aye.
Trustee Fisher?
Aye.
Trustee Burns?
Aye.
Trustee Banky?
Aye.
Which moves us to agenda items 8F and agenda items 8G. I think generally we can speak or discuss about these together tonight. This is for Mouse Motors. As we move to vote on this, we'll vote on each separately. The first relates to an amendment of our zoning map for the property which is located at 2 Salt Creek, and to the exterior appearance and site plan for development of McLaren dealership at 2 Salt Creek Lane, as I said, commonly referred to as Mouse Motors, which will be a McLaren dealership. Quick overview of the properties, it's 2.2 acres. It's currently zoned O3 General Office. The property is surrounded by O3 to the north, east, and west, and B3 to the south, which is the Land Rover dealership, which is directly across the street. I would note that there are no single-family residential districts within 200 or homes within 250 feet. The proposed zoning and land use would be consistent at B3 as what is across the street at Land Rover. Permitted uses in B3, remember, because this map amendment will run with the title of the property. Permitted uses includes restaurants, grocery stores, and car dealerships. The B3 district, as quoted from our code, is intended to serve the Hinsdale suburban community with a full range of locally oriented businesses, commonly located along established traffic routes such as Ogden Avenue, and is more generalized commercial district designed to establish areas of heavier traffic. This is in contrast to the O3 or its current zoning, which is intended to accommodate the needs of business and professional office and related business uses requiring a somewhat wider range of office space. I would note that the property has been vacant for approximately 10 years and is subject to the Hinsdale Office Park Owners Association and certain covenants that go with it. The Owners Association has provided a quote, no objection letter to the village with regard to this map amendment and the proposed use for the McLaren dealership. I would note also that the village will require the applicant to obtain a recorded private easement and an encroachment agreement with 901 North Elm Street for the shared access drive encroachment of the parking areas for 2 Salt Creek Lane. If trustees recall, that was the small green area on the map that we discussed at the last meeting. Very quickly for the exterior appearance and site plan, the details here, it's going to be a 2-story, 38,000 square foot building used to house an automobile dealership. The property will not have any ingress or egress off of Ogden Avenue, but rather will have 2 curb cuts on Tower Drive, which is a private road within the office park. The applicant did give a very detailed explanation and run through of the property and answered all of the trustees' questions at our first read. Specifically as we move then, so that's for the park, or I would say for the map amendment. Our second vote this evening is going to be pertaining to the variation. So the variation, our code requires that we have 1 space for every 275 square feet. So with a 32,000 square foot building, we'd have a required of 119 spaces. Okay, what we have proposed here are 46 spaces on the exterior of the building. So we'd go from 119 to 46. However, what is not included within our code are 34 spaces that are going to be on the 2nd floor of this building, 19 spaces on the 1st and 2nd floor display areas, 12 service bays or service areas for a total of 111 spaces. We also discussed at the last meeting the unique business operation of a McLaren dealership, which sells 7 to 8 vehicles per year versus a dealership such as Ford or Chevy or the like. The applicant also noted that all inventory will be inside and inside spaces are not counted towards the required parking. We have acknowledged the unique operations of this dealership versus what we believe, the intent of the code was more written towards a general mass auto dealership. And we've also noted at our last meeting that approximately 80 to 90% of the service that will occur for these cars are going to be used from people not driving their cars there, but are going to be brought in via a small truck. I think it's important here because not only it's important for our process, but the applicant has been through a long process here that we talk about the history of the meetings. In September of 2022, the Board of Trustees had a discussion on this item, so we're talking about basically 9 months ago. In December of 2023, we officially referred this to the Plan Commission. And then in February of 23, the Plan Commission did hold a public hearing on the matter. There were discussions at the Plan Commission with regards to drop-offs and test drives. No residents opposed at the plan, and the Plan Commission recommended unanimously and noted the aesthetics of the building as a positive. the sales tax generation is a positive, and the landscaping and screening provided on site will be a nice complement to the other automobile dealerships along Ogden Avenue. So with that, I would open it up to questions or comments from trustees, and we also do have a representative from Mouse Motors here this evening.
At the last meeting, you talk about the concern that the ZBA had about a subsequent owner.
We did, and
Okay.
we specifically went through the language for the
Okay.
trustees, and
It's in the ordinance.
it is.
Okay.
One thing I would note here that has changed, the one thing that has changed since the last meeting, the applicant expressed, we have in our typical agreements with building is that the building has to be completed 1 year within the time that their permit is, the permit is issued. Here, we've agreed to 3 years from the time the permit is issued, to give them time, to build a 32,000 square foot building, and with the acknowledgement that the construction may not start immediately thereafter. I would also note from the applicants that gives us some control if the construction gets way out of control and just isn't getting done. But if there are reasonable force majeure reasons why this is not getting done, the applicant can come back to this board.
And I'm sure they have every incentive to build it as quickly as possible.
Yes.
Okay.
So. Nothing? You good? All right. Good.
I mean, you guys are probably sick of us, but I want to thank Robert and definitely.
What is the plan for construction
Mike,
start?
can you stand up at the mic so it's part of the record?
We're hoping to start by the end of the year. I think we put in the buffer in case something comes up or there's
Right.
some issues, but I think we said every incentive to get here. We want them here as soon as we can, so that's the goal.
Okay. And will your dealership, once this opens here in Hinsdale, will the McLaren dealership in Chicago cease?
Yep.
Okay. Where is the next closest McLaren dealership?
Would be Troy, Michigan. Detroit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As we discussed it, Scott's brought this up a couple of times. I think that's, and I think it's an incredible looking building. It's going to be a head turner as people drive down
Yep.
Ogden Avenue.
Yep.
It's going to be a great complement to the other existing dealerships on Ogden Avenue.
Yeah, we want it to be a staple for Hinsdale and, obviously McLaren. I mean, the CEO of McLaren Automotive's coming here this weekend actually, so he wanted to see Hinsdale and
Okay,
see
good.
where it's gonna be, so.
And I think I read somewhere that it's going to be the largest McLaren dealership in North America?
Yeah, and I think it's going to be in the running for the biggest in the world.
Good.
There's we have to compete with the Middle East there, so I don't think we'll win that one.
Yeah, right.
But, yeah.
Good.
Good. It'll be a great addition to the village.
Yeah, thank you. No, thanks for the help and assistance.
And thank you for your patience during this 9-month process.
Yeah, no, we appreciate it.
Good.
It's okay.
All right. Last comments? Hearing none, I am going to make a motion to approve an ordinance amending the official zoning map of the Village of Hinsdale relative to the property located at 2 Salt Creek Lane, commonly known as Mouse Automotive, and to approve an ordinance approving an exterior appearance plan and site plan for development of a luxury auto dealership at 2 Salt Creek Lane.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Trustee Postma?
Aye.
Trustee Braden?
Aye.
Trustee Stifler?
Aye.
Trustee Fisher?
Aye.
Trustee Burns?
Aye.
Trustee Bink?
Aye.
And then for the second vote on this matter, which is agenda item 8G, I'll make a motion to approve an ordinance approving a parking variation at 2 Salt Creek Lane, Mouse Automotive, case number V/5-0522.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Trustee Postma?
Aye.
Trustee Braden?
Aye.
Trustee Stifler?
Aye.
Trustee Fisher?
Aye.
Trustee Burns?
Aye.
Trustee Bink?
Aye.
Okay, one more, Luke.
Yep, which this one will be short. Moving to agenda item 8H, and this is a second read due to the urgency of the matter, since we're at June 12th or 13th today. This is a request for a temporary use permit and a related license and indemnification agreement for outdoor seating for Casa Margarita at 25 East Hinsdale. The applicant wants to do the exact same seating that has been done for the past 7 years. 14 tables, 28 chairs, 4 umbrellas. Okay,
And the indemnity agreement's the same as before?
Same as
Yeah.
before. And the reason, just quickly, the reason we're doing this as an indemnity agreement and not as our normal outdoor seating arrangement is because the village is the lessor on this transaction, which makes the structure a bit different. Okay. With that, I'm gonna make a motion to approve temporary use permit and related license and indemnification agreement for outdoor seating until October 31st of 2023 for Casa Margarita located at 25 East Hinsdale Avenue, subject to the conditions set forth by the building commissioner.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Trustee Pashima?
Aye.
Trustee Braden?
Aye.
Trustee Stifler?
Aye.
Trustee Fisher?
Aye.
Trustee Burns?
Aye.
Trustee Bank?
Aye.
Okay, that takes us to the memorial building patio discussion item. I think you're gonna take care of that.
So, as we all know, it's our village's 150th anniversary. And in order to celebrate that significant milestone, there was a desire in our community to have a community project or a community gift. And that is how we got to our village patio. So tonight, hopefully the goal here is to have a fruitful discussion about how this project came to be, what the essence and scope of the idea and, you know, the idea for the patio is, and then also a timeline of what dates we're looking at, and also the campaign to raise donations to be part of this tribute. So, how did this project come to be? If we all go outside to the patio, we can tell that it is definitely not in the best shape. It's crumbling, it's falling apart, it is not user-friendly. And the idea hatched to combine the energy and the efforts behind the 150th commemoration and couple that with restoring the patio that we have outside. And the space is significant for many reasons. It's the centerpiece of our village. It's used, you know, by all. Think of Uniquely Thursday. Think of the farmer's market. Think of President Colley lighting the Christmas tree. You know, it is a showcase that people see as they come into town and as they take the train into town, and it needs to be restored to what is a really nice, user-friendly, you know, patio. There is energy behind this project. There's excitement from the commissions. There's excitement in the community, and many folks hope that this is the start of some more beautification projects. So along that lines, thinking of the essence and scope of what we're looking at for the patio, there's a picture up top of one of the renderings. But the idea is to provide a streamlined, updated, you know, version of what we have. Something that is welcoming to kids, parents, folks at the library. Something that's user-friendly to our community. So if people want to possibly hold events on this patio or make it a stop on the kitchen walk, I'm just throwing out ideas, but just making it a more warm environment that folks want to spend time on. You know, we also have to think of some things when we look at this is we're currently running extension cords right now to power the Christmas tree when we have our celebrations. The seating out there and the patio furniture is, again, some of it's mixed and matched. It's just not a place where you'd want to spend some time, have a cup of coffee, read the book, buy some bread at the farmer's market, and sit down with your little kids and enjoy the area. But the goal here is streamlined, not to overpower the building, have something that complements the structure of it, and, you know, also provides weather-hardy plants, weather-hardy and friendly materials, things that hide, or using yews and trees, as Laurel Harrell said, to hide the mechanicals. You know, when you look at it right now, you can see the, you know, the pipes, you can see the air conditioners, you can see all of these things. And ages ago, that was actually something that came to the board that was supposed to be in our idea of providing some type of coverage for that. But, you know, taking this design, and we can digest this a little bit, something that I would kindly ask the board to do is just look at some of these projects and this patio with just a little bit of a larger lens. For example, if the stairs had to be redone, because there are many projects and maintenance items that need to be addressed on the memorial building, let's take some time maybe over the next few weeks or the months or the summer to say, while we're digging up the patio, you know, should we also think about putting something into the budget to address the stairs so that we're not digging twice? So that we're not putting in landscape and hardscape, and then a year later, we're asking the same folks to come out and remove it. So that idea, before I turn it over to Mr. King from Hitchcock Design to provide a little bit more of an in-depth picture of everything here, the timeline for all of this is important. So staff and the 150th committee have been working really hard to get these renderings, to get some idea and to get some definition to this project. We want to make sure that it stays on task, but it's also budget friendly. And what the goal is over the next several months to have a campaign for donations and donation building, and then also streamline some of the ideas and thoughts and processes of what this patio should look like and what it should entail. For example, it came up at the Plan Commission that we want to make sure that we have the proper electrical running out to the patio that could also, you know, host events, but is also user-friendly for people from the library who want to sit down and just plug their phone or, you know, be able to sit there and run their computers. You know, do we want to possibly have materials, and it came up at the Historic Preservation Commission about using some of the reclaimed bricks from the streets in our town and to have those included in this project to even provide some more specialization and uniqueness to this and more meaning to the patio itself in the design. So I know I've talked a lot about what everybody's been working on over the past couple of weeks, but at this point I would love to turn it over to Mr. King from Hitchcock Design to provide us with a little bit more of a in-depth analysis of what we have here.
Sure, thank you. Tim King, Hitchcock Design Group. So the village asked us to get involved at a concept level and come up with some ideas for what the patio space could be. And so through a process, we looked at a number of different options for materials and things, and you know, I can answer any questions. I'll just give a brief overview. But I think the big takeaway was through those discussions, everyone really wanted to make sure we're using quality materials, natural materials if possible. So the preferred concept, which is what you see on the screen here, includes a center patio space that the lighter color material is a bluestone, and it's set on a concrete setting bed. So when installed, it's going to be there for a good long time. It's going to be durable. And then that
Tim, excuse
Yes.
me. A question came up in one of our planning sessions, and I think it's been answered, but I just want to ask it.
Sure.
So it's on a concrete pad. Does having a gravel surface underneath that have a price benefit?
It would have a price benefit, although the concern with that would be just longevity. So, putting it on a concrete base and using there's samples over here actually, a thicker paver, it's going to be there for a very long time. If it's on a gravel bed, even if it's installed as well as possible, just being in a public setting, there's a concern that it could have some settlement over time. So that was the recommendation, would be to put it on a concrete base. And then the brick colored material would be the reclaimed bricks that would be incorporated into the design as well. What you see on the screen is a bit larger than the existing patio space. Again, through the conversations, the desire was to, there's a lot of thought that was put into how much space is really needed for tables and chairs, and to make sure those, it's a little hard to see on the screen, but those center areas have some umbrella tables as well, but just to make sure there's enough space for the activities that you'd want to have there. So again, we had some other options that were smaller and different configurations, but through the historic commission input as well, there was discussion about the actual design and the shape of the space, so it would complement the building as well. So that's kind of how we got to where we are now. Again, I'd be happy to answer any more questions, or however you'd want to go from there with the discussion.
Michelle, you mentioned that, for example, we should consider, is there other work that should be done, for example, the stairs? Are you going to come back with a recommendation to us on that?
Yes. Kathleen and I believe the team will sit down and go over the wellness check for the building. And, you know, again, we can have a fruitful conversation about what might have to be done outside. Here's just a perfect example that, yes, we have to address landscaping with the immediate patio. But at the same time, every single one of us knows that you don't want to see all those mechanicals there. We may want to add some more shrubbery and bushes to the window wells to maybe, you know, address those issues. But much like anything, like you start peeling the onion off, you know, we want to stay focused on here, but the goal is to also, you know, understand, again, we don't want to touch it once, correct? We don't want to keep digging and having to spend more money to fix things that we should just maybe think about right now.
And is all of this doable in the time frame that's laid out?
Timeline-wise, going on to that next area, that my understanding right now for the patio is streamlining all of this, get things together, close out those discussions, December, Christmas time, 2023. Get our eggs all in the same basket, get ready for bid the beginning of 2024.
So my thoughts on this is expensive, right? We have $100,000 in the budget to redo this. I mean, there's no doubt that what's out there now looks tired. I mean, it's broken, it's stamped concrete, it's all broken and chewed up, and it looks terrible. What I think when we did the budget, we were thinking about replacing the stamped concrete. Bluestone is like 4 times more expensive than stamped concrete. I think that the thought is that we get resident donations to help pay for this. I'm all in favor of that, but I am going to resist putting Bluestone in there if the village is going to pay for it, because I just think it's, I mean, I think everybody but Alexis was here 6 months ago when those ceiling tiles fell off the roof over there because we have a hole in the roof that we need to replace. It's going to cost us how many thousands of dollars to replace the roof on this building. So we've got some issues that we've got to do before we start, you know, replacing stamped concrete with Bluestone. I'm all in favor of it, but I just think that it's something that should be a community project, and the village puts in its 100,000 or whatever. But I don't want to get ahead of ourselves and commit the village to a Bluestone patio that's going to cost us $450,000 when we've got to replace the roof on this building and we haven't done it yet.
Sorry, is that the number? Is $450,000?
Well, it's like it's in the 400s. Stamped concrete's about 100, rough numbers. The Bluestone is, we're talking 400-ish.
350, 400-ish, yes.
Yeah.
Wow. That's outrageous.
No, it is. But if residents want to do it, I mean, it's a beautiful building. If people want to accentuate the building and put in Bluestone there, more power to them. But as village president, I cannot vote for Bluestone if it's coming out of village money.
Tom, I think everybody would agree that's probably the case here on the board. That is not the number I think where anybody wants to land or be. So the team currently is talking about, again, streamlining some stuff, and this is what we want to use the next several months for, is to see where we land donation-wise, and then to have another fruitful conversation about what the cost looks like if we have 3 alternatives. One, the stamped concrete, which, you know, Mr. Kinkin speaks to more of. That's what we have, completely understand, but if we have any issue where we have to move mechanicals, we have to dig, we have a tree issue, that whole patio's coming out and you're left with rubbish. You know, the second alternative, my understanding is the concrete paver or something similar, and then the third would be the Bluestone. And then perhaps once those numbers are in, given our current thought process,
right,
let's have a conversation about what we get from donations, what we are looking at cost-wise, and then what we can look at and stomach that we think is appropriate, you know, to restore this to where it should be.
Yeah. That makes sense.
I don't know if a Bluestone even really is complementary to our red brick building and so forth. I mean, I think the concrete, you know, makes more sense, you know, like we have it right up there now. I mean, the bricks are a nice touch, but, excuse me.
President Colley, historically, has the village initiated a village-wide capital campaign where residents donate, and how successful was that?
None. I mean,
1927.
yeah, it's right.
For
When we
this
built
building.
The building we built the building, and it was extremely successful, where everybody gave $1, but.
With Mr. Clark.
But I'm not saying that won't be successful, but I think there's been, in my, what is it now, 14 years as village president, there's been talk about raising money for projects, but it's never gotten to the point this has. I mean, I think Michelle and the Harlows have pushed this to a point where it actually could work. But my only point is, I don't want, and this is what I'm most concerned about, is I don't want to pay village money to design something that we're relying upon donations we don't get.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's what Michelle's talking about, so we'll do, but I don't think you should look historically, since I've been president, because I think that there's more force behind this effort to raise money than I've seen before. So, and it is the 150th anniversary, and I do think that people are really committed to this, so I'm gonna give something to this, but I think it's a good idea, but I do think my only point, and I'd love to see it, is beautiful as the rendering up there. My only point is I'd like to see it donated dollars rather than all village money. We have $100,000 in the budget. There are things that we could do that would make sense to add to that $100,000 budget. Like if we were going to put bushes in front of the mechanical things out there, that would make sense, and I could see adding to the budget. But to me, the idea of the village paying for Bluestone is just something that I couldn't go for.
It's not even visible from, the
Right.
street, right? The only time you see it is when you're actually up there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But again, I do think Michelle has a point that it's something that's, you can make a centerpiece of the village and attract more people to go there. But, so I certainly don't want to rain on the parade. If people want to donate money to this and make this a community gathering spot and spend money on it, I'm all for it. But my primary concern is the money, the village money.
And working with Trustee Fisher and the Harlows and others, another thing that we could do is that the size of the patio is larger, 950 square feet. So again, depending on what funds are raised, we certainly can alter that. And then also, while it wouldn't have that exact look, we could use the repurposed bricks, which reduces the price. So there are other things that, again, we'd like to have the budget time and the fall to refine how we move forward, because as Trustee Fisher said, we replace trees all year round, and we do improvements to our parks all year round. And if we plan in 2024, which it's still our 150th till April 1st, we can still do some of these improvements using our dollars, just balancing everything. But to kick that in the month of June really isn't something that we should do.
Yep.
Has there been a, lack of a better word, a feasibility study on a capital campaign and how much we could raise?
I would turn that over to Andre and Kathleen, but to just start that conversation, these two pieces of paper, this would be where everyone is at right now for a brochure that would go out for the campaign. The Harlows have worked really hard in providing some input and some ideas, but laying out the history of, the memorial building and the fact that it was, paid for from the dollars of our community, and then making that same effort to pay for the patio and some of these other projects that folks might want to have historically done to the building itself.
I like that historic tie-in. Also, to the HPC's comments or recommendations about the adding historic continuity with original pavers from our streets. Do we have enough, and maybe it's a public works question, we do have enough that it would, and would that offset the cost? If we have the supplies, would it just be labor to lay that out? Would that be a cheaper solution
I suspect the labor would be the big cost.
Yeah, I'm sure.
than the materials? Okay.
I think another thing that would be helpful is to have an understanding of what the $100,000 project looks like. I mean, we know what the $350,000 project looks like, but what does a $100,000 project look like?
Yeah, I think it was just redoing the stamped concrete in the same shape it's in now. That was
It
the
looks
thought.
exactly like that, but it just isn't
No.
all rumbling.
Basically,
Yeah,
it's,
yeah.
we blast out the old concrete, we pour new
Just put
pavers,
it
and
new.
that's $100,000.
Yes.
So that's no landscaping, that's no tables and chairs, no benches?
No.
That does include the outlets for for some lighting.
Okay.
Yes,
It
I'm
was
sorry.
really just $100,000 is just a placeholder for replacement of the patio. So we never thought beyond, I mean, it wasn't any more granular than that.
Understood.
And we do have some community partners. The library has been a very good partner. They have purchased the furniture that is out there. They have a vested interest in improving the functionality of this. Now that we have the concept design, or as long as the board agrees that this is a good idea to move forward with this look, then my understanding is this will be a discussion for the library board to determine.
We're going to
a
ask them
con-
for money.
To determine a
Okay.
contribution, yes.
Yeah, good.
I mean, perhaps, I haven't thought about this other than, this evening, but I think, just from an order of events that should occur here is, we can't make decisions until we know how much money we have, so should we be doing that capital campaign before we're discussing all this? I
No,
think-
no, well, we're discussing it, but I think that's the plan.
Oh,
I mean,
okay, that is the-
That's the
okay,
plan.
good,
I think that
okay.
heretofore, the plan was to maybe get to pay Hitchcock to do a design
Yep.
before the capital plan, and I think what Michelle and I agree with it, is do the capital plan, see how much money you can raise, and then pay for the design.
Because we have to show people something
Something.
as to
Right,
what
so
it's
you-
going to
yeah,
look like.
The rendering will be part of the campaign, but the rendering will not come to fruition unless the money comes.
But I mean, usually what I see when there's a capital campaign for something is it'll have a breakdown of how much it costs and then who's providing what. And then, like with these different levels of gifts, it'll be like, well, we need to get $10,000 gifts and we need to get,
Yeah, to do this and
100.
this.
You're right.
Yeah, yeah.
If we get this many gifts at this levels, that's going to get us to the amount of money that we need outside of village funds
Yeah.
to pay for it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a good idea.
Do we want to critique this design? Is this the design we're looking at, or do we want to, without getting too granular?
We're welcome to the
Discussion.
feedback. It's a discussion item. One of
For
the.
fruitful discussion.
But with a caveat, we are working on the landscaping. And the reason I say that is in the front, on the south side, if you attended the Memorial Day celebration, there's a lot of use of that front area. And also on Thursday, when you see the use of this lawn area by children and so forth, that area has to be as hardy as possible to sustain high levels of activity.
Well, I was just going to say, and I think somebody in the Plan Commission noted this, is if you look up from Chicago Avenue, from the sidewalk, and, you look up at the entrance, all those tables are kind of in the way. So I don't know if there's a way around that.
Excellent point.
Yeah, there were discussions to have the tables, they're not permanently affixed, so
Right,
they could
right.
be moved around.
The
Okay.
goal, again, to look up and you see the memorial building in all of her glory.
Right,
And
then
then
you bow.
and then I say hello to you. And then we have the tables and chairs flanking it on both sides and keeping that area in the middle open
Right, or a
as
little-
a free airspace.
Yeah, good.
The one thing I like from the renderings,
That makes the square bigger, though, I think.
Correct.
So,
and this goes to what Matt was talking about, one thing that would be an added nice touch is there used to, that I think is very attractive, and I don't know how much it would cost to put that back.
Oh.
It's purely decorative.
It's on the campaign, Tom.
That's part of the.
It's part of the
I know,
fundraising
But I'm
effort.
saying that to Matt's point, if we get X amount of money, we can do that, but I think that looks pretty neat.
And I mean, I do want to point out, and I feel like with the 150th, there has been a lot of excitement for projects like this. So, with staff's help, we would love to see the momentum, maintained. And then, we will see where we can go. But the Harlows had some really good input here, just outlining the history of how the building came to be, how it was funded. And again, with these types of projects, the goal to be to carry on that tradition.
So you have any thoughts on how go about raising the money? I mean, how would you mail this to every resident, or?
Another topic discussion here. Yeah, we're gonna have, somebody's gonna have to act as a point person to address this and reach out to the community. And, yeah, it's gonna have to be in the mail. It's gonna have to be in our water, bill reminders. And there's just gonna have to be community awareness, for these types of projects.
Right. Like, maybe President Colley could make an announcement at the 4th of July parade or something like that.
Sure.
Try not to be too excited.
Yeah.
We could put a big hat on the side.
I will
I don't
tell
mean
you.
to give you like a nondescript answer. That's
No,
something
no,
that
I
like, it's
just,
not my
just wondering
wheelhouse
if we
and I would
thought
have to.
about it. If we-
I think we should actually ask for professional advice on
Yeah,
how to
Right.
go to
yeah,
these capital
yeah,
campaigns.
yeah,
I would think there's probably a group of high schoolers that, have some access and access social media and drive this.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
we need professional help.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know if Andre or Kathleen, if you want to add to that again.
We're happy to receive information about additional direction as to how we might go about the fundraising campaign.
Right.
We were thinking mailing to homes, having an ad in the Hinsdalean, it being on the website, and discussing it that way. But if there are people who regularly do these campaigns, they can feel free to contact me or Andre.
Okay.
I can tell you that from another approach, there's a couple other community organizations, specifically Community House and Wellness House, that have been very successful with their financial raises. They're also very well entrenched within our own community. And my suggestion would be is that we reach out to their boards and ask them for suggestions, because two things will be accomplished. First of all, you're gonna get some good ideas, but you also may get some money out of it.
Yeah, that's good. The second one I like better. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but the one thing I would caution, and having been involved with some capital campaigns, one of which we tried to save the Hinsdale Theater, which didn't go very well, is that we try to shy away from in-kind donations, because there will be individuals who will try to make in-kind donations, like, I'll supply advice or things like
Right,
that.
right.
And what happens is that it either it doesn't materialize, and first of all,
Right.
and it's basically, it doesn't have the same weight.
Right. Cash only.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
And
So-
that is a challenge. We're a public entity, so we have different rules about bidding and things like that, so we have to be mindful of.
Even if it's donated money and not,
I have to look further into,
yeah.
into that, but once our tax dollars touch it, certain things have
Yeah,
to
yeah,
happen
yeah.
as a result of it.
Okay. Yep.
Right, but just to expand on those ideas, I mean, in terms of, I think it needs to come from the village, come from the board, and, and really maybe setting up some kind of a subcommittee within this board to schedule those meetings and to see if there's, something there.
Yep, that's a good idea. Anything else, Michelle?
I'm happy to ask or answer any other questions if anyone has them.
How would the Memorial Day celebration in future years sort of be set up? Maybe, can you go back to the earlier
I
picture?
can
It's
try.
the view from the top overlooking. I'm just,
There we go.
yeah, or,
There's a few different views here.
okay. Just
This one?
okay, that's a good one. Like a Memorial Day, like what would we need to do to the sort of day-to-day setup to make Memorial Day happen?
Okay. Okay, yeah, to answer that question, as was mentioned before, the tables that are in the middle are movable.
Right.
So those could be moved, and there's a good amount of space there, and again, as the design gets advanced, we can think about how some of those things get staged, and we can work with the village to just see how that gets set up, and even show a diagram on how that could work. But I think there's plenty of space where we could make that sort of thing work.
How, on the sides there, how I don't know, deep is that area? Like in front of those trees?
I think the area around the trees, it's, the walkway surface is at least 10 feet wide, if not wider.
Yeah.
And that center area is, right now in this scheme, it's 32 feet wide, so it's a pretty good sized space.
Right, yeah.
Mr. King, if I
Yes.
can ask a quick question. If we had the benches, I know I've seen, different concepts, but the benches, would would you, one, be able to sit on them? And then two, is that where the outlets would go?
The seat wall
The seat
components,
wall?
yes, that's correct. So, part of the discussion was, and it might show up a little better in one of the other views here. Yeah, you can see on either side of that center area, there would be a seat wall height, wall there. And that's partly to define the space, but also there'd be outlets in that wall, in the backside of the wall. And it would be at, they're typically about 18 to 24 inches tall, so you could sit on those. But benches also could be put in that space if you wanted to.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a quick question. I'm so sorry if I should know this. What is the deadline or time frame to receive donations by?
To make a decision about moving forward as a 2024 project, we would have to have an idea about what our monies were about December 31st.
Okay.
Because then we'd be in a position to do the bid documents and go out to bid in February or March. That's when the bidding market is most competitive,
Right.
with goal to do an early spring project.
In my experience, capital campaigns, I've worked for many years on the R. Harold Zoe Coleman Studio KLM. And in addition to this, great marketing collateral and social media push, I found that events are very beneficial to have, before daylight savings time ends, having an event where you charge tickets and someone really reinforces the call to action about how this can better the community. And, people can pledge donations there as well.
Yep.
Also, Kathleen, I don't know whether this applies, but does the village have a 501 status where someone can make a tax deductible donation?
These donations would be tax deductible?
Yeah, because from a marketing perspective, I think that's really
Yes.
critical.
It is on the brochure.
It is, okay.
Okay, great.
I'm sorry, okay, I'll
That-
continue.
that's
I
okay.
didn't see that.
That's okay. Alexis, are you going to be part of our subcommittee then?
She's volunteered.
Yep.
Just that what she just said, volunteered herself.
Only if we can all work in tandem with the R. Harold Zoe Coleman Studio as well. And I'm looking at the Parks and Rec right now. You.
Okay. Is that bring a close to the discussion? Okay. Next item is staff reports. Anything to report?
No report.
No advisory commissions, things, citizens petition, no one here. Trustee comments, any trustee wanting to comment on anything? No reason for a closed session. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Trustee Pashma?
Aye.
Trustee Braden?
Aye.
Trustee Stifler?
Aye.
Trustee Fisher?
Aye.
Trustee Burns?
Aye.
Trustee Baker?